Can someone confirm if they can see my screen? Lorraine,
Yes,
are
we
you able
can.
to see my screen? Oh,
Yes.
okay. So the last lesson, we went through what QA is, what a QA does. Um, I just a quick recap. Um, Remember, I said I like using analogies. Reason being, if you're trying to explain something complex and you remember it with simple things, it becomes easier to remember. So, like the way I said that, think of it as a house, a very expensive house, because when you're selling software, it's very expensive. And a QA is basically the person who makes sure the what is it called? The finishing is okay, the sink is okay, the paint is okay, the tiles are okay. There are no okay. Basically, there's nothing that should affect the person who's moving in. So there shouldn't be rain, there shouldn't be water dripping in, etc. So now that's what you do as a QA. You basically make sure that when the product gets to the client, they don't have a bug where that it doesn't let them save maybe a new password, or maybe they're not able to save some records, or maybe they're not able to reload the page and see the new records, and then that affects the user. So basically, you're supposed to have caught that before it goes into production. So my theory is basically using AI to automate that and help me implement those steps. So that's basically what we did last time. So I was just talking about that. And then I sent an email to around 25 people on that. That was basically a summary with the MCP configuration and steps on how to do it. If you receive that email, maybe you can raise your hand. You received the email. Okay. Maybe I can resend it. So, any questions until then before we proceed? Okay. So, we finished up with the recap. I was going to address any blockers that anyone faced with integrating. Okay. So ideally, what we do here is we use a library called Playwright to create test cases. The test cases for Playwright are either in Python or in TypeScript or in JavaScript. Um, the reason for picking one or the other is dependent on how your team or your company works. If your company prefers Java or JavaScript, you stick to TypeScript or JavaScript. If your company prefers Python, you stick to Python. So ours prefers TypeScript. So this is what an example of a test case would look like. Um, this is basically supposed to search Amazon for, I think, headphones, ideally. So let's say you'd have test cases for multiple things. One test case could be for logging in. One test case could be for logging out. Another one could be for entering data in a certain module, etc. So ideally, as a QA, you're supposed to have these automated test cases. So let's try run this one. Let's see. Um, Okay. So my test case has failed. Um, this always happens. This is what we call a flaky test. And ideally, what I'm supposed to come and do is ideally come and read this log, see that it failed at step 20. So it was expecting something. It was expecting our results links. So this, I think, this one is probably coming from the backend. So it's expecting something over here. So it failed. The test case didn't actually fail because there's something wrong in the system. The test case failed because the test case is bad. So I have two options. I can either scroll through, I go to line 20, it's this one, and then it even tells you error expected to be greater than no etc. Or I can create a new chart. Come here and tell it, okay, okay. So I hope you guys can still see my screen. So remember the first option was to basically, okay, so the first option, you can basically debug the file like this. You read and see number 20, and then one easy way of debugging the file, you control A, yeah, straight in ChatGPT, and then tell it debug this test case 20 failed. You can do that, which is normally what people would do. Or you can come here, connect your MCP. So mine is over here. So mine is this one. MCP played it. Okay. Give me a second. So those are one of the things that you go through when you're trying to automate things. But basically, what I'm trying to do is have the chatbot debug the test case and then generate the new test steps.
let's go ahead and set up some MCP servers inside of VS Code. It's super simple to do. Here I have one tool. You can see it.
Okay. So I've got it to work to some extent. So basically, what it's doing is it's using the same test steps, or rather the same functions that you'd use in Playwright if you're to write the test cases manually. So it's basically the same as someone recording test cases and then basically creating them and then running them on the CI/CD pipeline. So now if I was to edit this test case and try to make it better, one of the problems I'd have is the failing. So there's this term called flaky tests. Flaky tests are basically tests that fail, not because of a bug, but basically they fail in between these steps over here. So now if I was to edit, I would have missed something. But now that I've told the chatbot to edit, it's going to edit it and then probably give me better test steps. Yes,
Thomas.
Alphonse. Yes.
Are you presenting?
Yes. It disconnected. Sorry, apologies for that. I hadn't seen that it had disconnected. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. What I was saying was I was debugging a file, this file over here. This test case is supposed to go to Amazon and go all the way to the checkout. So when I ran it, it failed. And then now it's talking about you have two options for editing your test cases. You can either come here, edit it manually, or number two, you can Control A, Control C, copy the whole test case, take it to ChatGPT, tell ChatGPT this is my test case and this is the error, fix for me the test case, and then keep on trying until it works. Or you can take 2 to 3 minutes, it will take a bit longer, connect something like the Playwright MCP, and then tell it to run the test case, figure out what's wrong with it, and then tell it to run all the way until success, and then edit for me the test case. So that's basically what's been happening. So it's been going to, you see these steps, these are basically the same steps that are on the right side. Now, I'm going to ask it to create the file now, and then I'll explain why I've used the MCP. Create the So now it's supposed to probably proceed to edit my file and give me better test steps. So now the reason as to why I've shown you a file that failed, because I have like this one that works. The reason I've showed you a file that fails is because when you're a QA, you'll be asked to test multiple things. And sometimes you're asked to test them at random. I like to call it at random, but it's not really at random. It's when the developer is done fixing stuff. And then let's say you have 4 modules that you need to test. When you need to test them, it might be a bit hard if, let's say, you have to come up with the test cases and then you have to write them all out. First of all, you have to write them out and then create them. So you'll write them out on either TestLink, Jira, X-Ray, depending on what you're using, even Notion, and then write them out like this, and then run them, and then make sure they're not flaking. So you can basically automate, I think, the last 5 steps. You just have to come up with the thinking and how to come up with the test cases, etc. So like now it's tested, and then it's remembered what it was using, and then now it's edited my test case. And then I think it will test it again, and it will keep testing until the test case is solid. So now imagine if you have like 20 test cases that you need to run. You can either do this 20 times, or you can just give it to this MCP, have it run the test cases, have it edit for you, and then have it align them for you. And then now when you push to GitHub for either your CI/CD pipeline to work with it, etc., it can work properly. Are there any questions after that? Any questions? Are there any QAs in this meeting, or people who want to be QAs?
Yes.
Okay. What do you test with? What do you use to test? Sam, what do you use to test? Selenium, Test Sigma, Playwright.
Playwright and Cypress.
Pardon?
Playwright and Cypress.
Oh, okay. So it applies the same across, also through the MCPs for Cypress. There's an MCP for Selenium. It applies across. Okay. So it's still running. It takes time, but it may take 3 to 5 minutes of this editing, but after it's done, you have a test case that you're probably 99% sure will run without any flakiness. Right? So before I move to the prompting, so the next phase is going to be prompting basics. But before I move there, let me just show you just like a quick example. See if you can see my screen. Like let's say for today I was 10 modules. What I mean by a module is this, like these folders. So that's what you see on the menu. That's 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Each of these folders around 30 test cases each, which have to be tested and you have to approve. So I have 2 options. It's either I run these test cases manually, so I have the test cases on X-Ray for Jira, and then I run manually and I change pass fail, pass fail, or I can either spend like 5 minutes brainstorm how I'm going to this, and then tell my chat what I'm going to test it, And you're going to use the Playwright MCP and the Jira MCP. So as you can see, adding comments to the bugs that I found, the test cases that I found, all of this I did based off one prompt. And if you look at the email that I sent you, the mcp.json file that I sent, that's basically what you're supposed to add. It's a very simple file. It looks like this. So if you check on the chat, I've sent you a link to a GitHub repository. That GitHub repository shows you how to put it on cloud, desktop, even have some Playwright configurations over here. Shows you how to put it on VS Code. VS Code is free. And then also shows you how to put it on something called Windsurf. Windsurf is just like another version of Cursor. So let's move to so basically we're going to prompting basics. So even if you're using an MCP, you still need to learn how to prompt, or basically be able to prompt properly. As you can see, I spent around 5 minutes on this left side on the chatbot trying to get it to correct this test case. But if I wrote the right prompt, I would have taken a shorter time. So there's the 10 steps to cure automation, basically just automation. Still on that GitHub repo. So define the automation rule and risks. On that workflow. So if the workflow means do you have to log in again, or can you continue after logging in? The success criteria is probably what the product owner will give you, and failure signals you need to cover before writing any prompt or test. And then there's capture the system context and constraints. So that's your test data, so like the username, password, URLs, edge conditions, all of this should be on your test cases. Now, the reason why you need to do this keyword, the keyword here is context. When you're using AI, it's smart, but it doesn't remember well. So if you give it context, like the way I've given it this test case, and then I've told it to work with that. If I told it to just come up with a Playwright test case, it would have done anything. So they're smart, but they just don't remember very well. Then you need to break your test cases or your workflows into smaller chunks. So there are a couple of MCPs that you can use. There's Playwright, there's Selenium, there's Cypress. There's something that I like using called super memory. So this is what saves me from basically my AI models not remembering things. It's called super memory. So basically you're able to create memories every time you use your chatbot. It's an MCP, and then it stores it in the cloud. And then let's say if you want to start a new chat from ChatGPT, Cloud, Casa, anywhere, just connect the MCP, then tell that chatbot search my memories and then start from there. So at least you have context. And then you need reliable test data and fixtures. So basically test inputs, clean steps, or cleanup steps, keeps running deterministic. Basically, let's say you're speaking English, so your test cases are in English, and then the test steps, they need to be very direct or very simple to understand, so that if an AI reads them, they're able to execute. For example, me, I'm able to fetch a test case from maybe let's say Slack or Notion or Jira, and then give it to my AI agent and then tell it run the test case. It doesn't need anything else. After reading the test case, it will be able to understand everything. And then when you're prompting, add the task. You're going to test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The role, you're a QA engineer, the context, The context will probably be the user stories or your test cases from wherever you store them, and the test steps. Remember, these things are just in English, so it's just very good explanations step by step. If you're able to read it, a model can read it. And then show examples or templates. For example, I wanted this thing to debug my test case. It's debugged it all the way. Here it is at checkout. It's just that I left it running at the background. So it was able to debug. The reason it was able to debug is because I gave it context at the beginning. Let me try to put, I gave it context somewhere up here. I gave it a file, and then I told it to proceed and test for me. So if you give it context, it's able to remember. And then also, if you don't want to keep giving it context, you come back to number 3, super memory. You can save a whole file in super memory. You can tell super memory to remember these test cases were run on October 10th and they're due on October 20th. So when October 20th reaches, remind me. So it's AI, it's not like a human, but it has to remember. So use super memory. The configuration I sent you guys on the email, but it's also over here on GitHub. And then execute and stabilize the playwright MCP flow. So run the scripted tests and post table selectors. So those are things that I wanted to avoid doing when, instead of editing this amazon.mcp file, I gave it to this chatbot so that these selectors are what cause flaky tests. The chatbot will figure out the best selectors, so I won't have to struggle after that. And then inspect results with reflection and advisory reviews. Ask the AI to critique the tests, challenge assumptions, and expose coverage gaps. So normally what I advise people to do, let's say you're using an IDE, so you're using Casa, Windsurf, VS Code. After it gives you an output, have another chatbot on your browser, like ChatGPT, and then put that output on ChatGPT, and then tell it to criticize it. And then inside your prompt, make sure you use this keyword. You can write this down, best practice. Using the word best practice always most likely guarantees you a more accurate answer, especially in terms of job practice and how things are working in the world. So if you use best practice in anything that you search up, if it's to do with code or testing or anything, if you write best practice, the answers you get are probably the industry standard ones. And then persistent learning, so that's for memory that I'm insisting about, so that you can basically store prompts, you can store how you guys save bugs, you can store how your developer works, etc. And then lastly, automate follow-up actions and iterate. So like for me, my follow-up action after testing, I have an MCP called Atlassian MCP. Atlassian MCP works with the applications for Atlassian, which is Jira, Confluence, etc. So I'm able to change the status after that, or maybe create a bug. I can tell it to fetch the latest bugs from this week and then run the tests with Playwright. So those are my follow-up methods. So those are the 10 steps. This will be available. Let me check if I put it in my GitHub. Yeah, it will be available on the repository. Okay. So the second last part, after you take questions, I'd like you guys to try going to the repository and try connecting to either your cloud desktop, your Visual Studio Code, Windsurf, or Casa. You can connect one of these configuration files, and then tell me if you've connected, and then try running one test. Are there any questions up to there? Any questions from the group? Okay. Is there anyone here who can MCP be used to mock or intercept APIs? Yes, it can. So if you want to mock APIs, I think people use Postman. And then if you want to intercept APIs, we use Bubsuit. So Postman has an MCP and Bubsuit has an MCP. So yes, it's possible to mock and intercept APIs. Sam, I've seen your question. Okay. So if you check your screen, you'll see that I've posted a link to a GitHub repository. If you're ready, you can basically clone that repository and try to connect to one of your MCP clients, if it's Casa, Visual Studio Code, Client, Gemini, so on and so forth. The configuration works the same for all of those applications. And then here's my email. So if you manage to do it, or if you have any blockers, just email me and then I can help you out. So that is my email.
So if I will not accept, willing to development. And so at this high level consultations.
Okay. So for the task, I think I can lead the group doing it. So I've come to the end of my presentation. So now we're at the wrap up. I've given you guys an assignment. Let me just share the screen nicely. So I'm at the wrap up. So I've given you guys an assignment to do. You can push the code or any issues to the GitHub repo. I've shared it with you. And then also I've shared my email, so you can reach out for any questions. If there are no questions from your side, I think I'm done for part 2 of using MCPs to automate QA tasks. Part 3 will be about creating your own custom MCP that is tailored to what your company does with QA. That's it from my side. Go back to you, Lorraine.
Thank you so much, Thomas. I hope they get to do the assignment and I hope they also reach out to you. This is a golden opportunity. I wish you a good evening. Thank you so much, Thomas. and see you next week. Bye.
Okay. Bye.